presume that you know most of these people. We've got two from Manchester, Jim Fleming and Patty Hughes, and two from up on the mountain, Vince Clark and Susie Rowley Wine. I know there will be no stopping you, but to get you started, first, when did you all meet? Did you go to elementary school together?
Patty and I did.
Yeah, and you did.
We did.
Yeah.
We went to the Londonderry town office. That was our school.
And Vince was saying he started over here.
The Catholic church we went to also.
First
That
through
actually, when it was two townships, both had 8 grades, up here and in South Derry. When I went to the first grade, I went to the town offices down there, and the one room had the first 3 grades with one teacher for us. The next year, which had to be 1955 or so, in 1956 they decided to combine the schools. The first 3 grades came up here, and the 4th through 8th was down at the town offices down there. So they bused the South Derry kids up here and North Derry kids down there. And this is a good time to add in that when I was a kid, there was North Derry children and South Derry children. You know, definitely, that's a North Derry boy.
The sharks and
When they combined the schools, we got a little closer to know each other, but it still was, you're a North Derry boy and I'm a South Derry boy. And there was always a competition between us. And I don't know about
and
the
did
girls.
it apply to the girls?
Well, I remember about that. There was a school bus in the parking lot, so we'd all go out and get in the school bus and kiss each other.
We did that.
I don't know if we kissed, Vince. I think it was those Davison boys that I was kissing.
And then you
Well, we're
two,
from the modern Sodom over there in Manchester, you know, and we had a brand new school. Actually, my dad helped work on it, build it. And we met all these guys when we went to Burn.
that was it.
We're the mountain kids.
Yep.
But I remember when Stratton was being built, my dad was working over here a lot, and I'd come over with him. I couldn't wait to get over here. I mean, Manchester was just not cutting it. This was it.
And I met Susie when I was a freshman in high school, and it was like, these are my people. It was
It's because you've probably been to Granville or
it was a
Bernardo's.
stop, yeah, Manchester was a stop on the way to New York State. But,
Yeah.
yeah, it was just, it was a definite aura to the mountain as opposed to Manchester. Get me up there.
I imagine you gave your mothers quite a bit of angst. What do you think?
That was
trouble.
What do you live for when you're...
We had a neighbor. She was a nice lady. She was just kind of nosy. She'd call up my mother or father after we had a weekend and we'd been out, who knows where. But
She knew.
she knew because her daughter would run home and tell her. And so my father would say to me, "Where were you this weekend?" Well, he knew already. Of course, then I'd lie, and then I was really in trouble.
Of course, they found out most of their information on the party line.
Yeah, on the party line. You're right, the party line.
Yeah, party lines, the telephone office was down where Stephanie Shantana lived. There used to be the Slades, Leon and whatever her name was, Slades lived there, and they had one
Lena.
room that...
Lena.
Lena Slades. And Aura, right. Anyway, they had a telephone office in there, and lots of times, I can still remember hitting 00, and she come on and said, "You know where my father is?" And they said, "Yeah, he went to Brattleboro." They could hear all the conversations, so they knew, you know. And then a quick thing about both towns, really, because they both is that up till 1961, and we'll get into that, but the Londonderry was really Vermont. There was 3 things you did. You logged, you farmed, or you got in a car with George Wells and that group and go to Springfield to the shops. And that was it. Yeah, my father was a carpenter, and he might have built a house every 2 or 3 years, you know, and now you can't find a carpenter to change a door for you. And I can remember there was 4 sawmills in town. One was Smith's Mill, one was
Cops.
well, that's 5. Cobb's was going, I think, then. Donison Howe.
Yeah.
And then there was Alexander's right on the corner where the Montessori school is now. That was a real sharp corner with a brick building on it, and that all moved back. And then what we had to listen to in the first 3 grades was right here, Williams's set, right where that stone is. And they had a big diesel engine. Of course, anybody knows anything, every time they went into a log, that diesel engine would go, whoa! We couldn't even open the windows because you couldn't hear the teacher. All day long for 3 years, that thing went there.
That's your excuse.
Huh? Well, I want to tell you, I learned so much in the 3rd grade that the teacher decided she'd keep me back to teach the other kids coming up. I was such a smart student. Anyway, maybe it was the sawmill, Jim, that got me. Anyway, and so that was our lifestyle. And I was telling Mimi, it's changed so much, and you all know it, but us kids, any age from, say, 6 to 10, sometimes we'd go, anybody know where the ledges are in South Derry? What they call the ledges?
No.
You know, it's all pine now, hiding them, but in the old days, you could look right up and see the ledges. Most of us kids from South Derry would camp up there, and it was nothing to camp for 2 weeks and not even see your parents. We'd go home, steal food, well, we wouldn't steal it, but get food and stuff and go back up there and start these big bonfires. And one parent would call another, you think those kids are all right? Well, they got a fire going, I guess they're all right, you know.
That was fun.
And we just, you know, and there was no worry. The parents didn't have to worry. Of course,
Because we probably
population.
didn't drink, did we?
I don't think we were into
Old
the
enough?
booze then, but God, we could have been. I don't know.
Where are the ledges?
Huh?
Where are the ledges?
Well, if you stood...
Down the river road.
No, they're right behind Bobby Gutschall's, which is now, well, you know where the town offices are, and you go out that way. Marvin Howard's Fields, which is where the old Peabody house was, up behind there.
Yeah.
Huh?
Up above Jim's
Anyway,
house.
his fields go up there, and that used to be all cleared. That picture right in there would show them. That long picture would show the ledges.
Yeah.
And that was all field and went right up and over to Hargraves, which is out on Thompsonburg Road. And that was all cleared, and there's a big set of ledges here. Most of them are flat, so you could walk up them. There was one section that I went up the steep part, you know, here on them, and they just, the ledges are still there, but they're all hidden by pine. And that's where us kids hung out for days up there. And then another thing, quick, like I'll say, is thank God for the town and being, was in the Smiths brothers, putting in Memorial Park. Memorial Park was a big hangout for us kids, and the town was good enough to get a guy named Gordy Page to come in and be a lifeguard for many years. And
He lived with us.
He lived with Susie and Casey and them. Anyway, he what was I going to say? That was a great hangout. Just one story about that. We didn't have sunblock and all that in the time. I'm starting to find out about that. Going to Dartmouth every 2 years and get the. Anyway, we take Scotch tape and write dirty words on our back, you know, and then lay in the sun all day, and then pull the tape off so you could read these dirty words on the back of us boys. It was one of our little fun gigs.
I remember when I was young, my father would take me to the end of the river, the pond, that's in Londonderry, the pond in Londonderry.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we would go way over to the corner in the dark and fish for eels. Oh my God, it was the most disgusting thing. So it'd be dark and my dad would pull these eels out and dangle them around my face. Of course, I'd run a mile. Well, one night they caught a whole bunch of them and they took them home. And my dad was best friends with Leroy Williams. I don't know if any of you remembered him. And I was best friends with his son, Carl Williams. So he was, of course, there with me. They took the eel home and put it in Leroy's wife's sink. And she got up the next morning and there was all these things crawling around. She wasn't happy with Leroy. Another thing we did was, there really wasn't anything to do in Londonderry. Well, we'd swim, and I had a horse, so I'd ride my horse with Carl. We went to the dump, and we shot rats. That was a trip. If you shot one, it would explode. So we'd shoot rats. That was successful. Got rid of a few.
I did.
To elaborate on that, that's right across from Merrill's where the dump is today. And of course, they just put the things in there. When the cans got 9 miles high, they pushed them a little further over the bank. But people would bring their grandmothers and aunts and uncles, and they'd set up for this rat shooting. High-powered rifles just like this. And there's old granny there netting away. And when they heard a can go tinkle, 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 they said, "There's one!" And these high-powered, like, deer rifles would open up and cans would fly.
That's what my father had.
Yeah. Oh, it was crazy. Nowadays, you couldn't go. That would. Number one, they wouldn't be pushing the garbage right over the bank, obviously.
Towards the river.
I can remember that whole area just that deep with garbage, you know, and they just take a dozer and push it towards the river and not even bury it. I mean, we did that for a while back in the 80s, 90s. We buried it there, but anyway, yeah, dump shooting rats. I forgot about
That one. My friend Carl Williams lived right next to the church, and he had a donkey, and the donkey's name was Happy. Well, we all had to go to church every Sunday, of course. Our parents made us, and Happy would get right behind the church and start talking. You know, oh my God! Did you ever hear it? He would be, whatever the donkey sound is, he would be doing it for like an hour. And of course, everybody in the church just looking at everybody. It was Carl's donkey. It was fun. We used to love it when he did it because we could get out early. Yeah, out of church.
Well, I didn't come up over the mountain until like the year after I graduated from high school, maybe. I worked at the mill for Ed Brown and met Michael, and our life kind of starts, my life up here starts about then. And the first year that Michael and I were together, we lived in a tent at the rec area. Ralph Snow very nicely said, "Sure, you can live down there." So we lived down there for the whole summer, and then we went to house camp at Cold Pond until it got too cold to do that. And then we went to Europe and hitchhiked and did that whole thing and came back. And I don't think that we lived with electricity or running water for maybe 3 years. We lived at Smith's Camp in Peru for we were married while we lived there. And then we lived at Pearl Buck's place.
Yeah.
We lived at Stonehaunt, Scott Nearing's place. We just had a wonderful life. And when we bought Minnie Hewlett's house on Melody Hill, Arthur Twitchell helped us get that mortgage, and it was for $15,000. And Michael worked on that house constantly until we sold it after about 12 years and made a lot more than $15,000.
I remember the housewarming party. There was a tree we put money on.
Yes,
Yeah.
I remember that too.
Comes
That's
with
fun. And
dollar
it
bills.
was like this inside, the whole thing. And
It was insulated.
Oh, shiny. Our kids used to say, "Why is it so shiny in our baby pictures?" Because it was insulation forever, and I had pictures from Country Journal magazine. It used to be a popular publication. Scotch tape up on the walls, and I thought I was in heaven. I thought I gone to heaven. I just loved it so much. So that was how we started out up here, and just having all these friends that were longtime friends, even though I didn't meet these guys until high school. We had, we just made friends and stayed friends, and we, gone through a lot of things together, and it's amazing how We're still hanging in there.
My father was very strict, as maybe some of you would figure. Everybody else could go out at night on a date and stay out till 11. Not me. I had to be home at 10. But the issue was, before I could go anywhere, do anything, or go swimming, he would make me mow the lawn with a hand mower. Now, we have a big lawn, and then it goes up back.
Oh my God.
Well, I never got to go swimming, that's for sure, mowing that darn lawn. But I guess he felt that keeping a hand on me was gonna make me a good person. I don't know. I don't know what he thought, but he got married when he was 16, and maybe he was a little angry because his life wasn't what he thought it was gonna be. My mom was 18, and then they had me, so, well, they had me then. But,
16.
yeah,
My first introduction to anybody over here actually was one of the Davison twins. They were in the mid-Vermont racing. And Ronnie Mountain was racing too.
Ski racing.
Ski racing.
Yeah.
And they came over to stay at Ronnie's, and they left for the race the next day, and I lived next door. So we hung out down there in the basement.
yeah, I remember that basement.
Oh, those walls could talk.
We pretty much skied every day.
Well, that's what I was going to bring up about what really changed this area and stuff. We always had Bromley, and thank God for Paps and Bromley, because we get out of school Wednesdays. And this is, I've got to add too that the town, I know they do things now like up to Pingree Park, they have the concerts and stuff, and it seems like we buy our entertainment. Back then, I can remember my mother and father being in plays in town, and there would be 2 a year, and they would have the lines to learn, and they'd be home trying to learn them for these plays. And it was right up here, the lady called Stein, I think, the house that's moved. As you go out, I call it Rollins' Road, but it's
Parsons Lane.
Yeah, Parsons.
Parsons Lane. The one they took and put across the street, she was a summer lady there, and she used to direct plays in Hollywood. I think it was Stein.
Brown. It's John Brown. Yeah, John Brown.
That doesn't ring a bell. But anyway, she would direct these plays and stuff. And then the churches always had dinners, which they still do, and we, you know, I think the towns we weren't so busy then than we are now.
And the auction.
And the Lord's auction, well, yeah, that was, well, you saw me doing it, but I bought my bed there when I was 6 years old at Lord's auction. That's why I started it back up for a while till. Anyway, yeah, the town just did more to entertain themselves than I think they do now. But I don't think we have time. Husbands and wives who both got 2 jobs just to pay their taxes and stuff. We go on about that all night, but we're lucky to, I guess, be able to afford like the music we listen to in Pingree Park and things like that. But what really changed this place is when Frank Snyder ran into Uncle Tink and wanted to know how much snow Stratton had on it. And the story is he was coming down, he skied slow. This is Frank Snyder from Mourne-Munger. And I won't get into that whole story, but Tink and him got together and they started Stratton. And Tink's whole idea of that was to get employment for the people around here. My mother was a professional waitress, and I don't know how many people remember the Stone Steps restaurant in town. Yeah, Chris Erling and Bill Erling, and that she waited there, which was lucky for me because I ate in the summertime I ate every supper there. Met my father there at 5 o'clock. And that's a whole nother story about the mill whistle, Smith's mill whistle. Anybody remember that? That was a steam whistle off a train from Brown Road thing that Hunt had. What the heck was his first? Norm Hunt. Norm Hunt had that and gave it to Dick and Tink. Well, they did it for a while. It used to go off at 7, quarter of 12, or 12, quarter of 1, and a quarter of 5. They blow it. And 1% of the town complained about it. nobody else said anything about the noise. They didn't like it, so they stopped doing it. The other 99% said, turn that thing back on. That tells me the kids when to come home. That tells me this, that tells me that. So they went back to blowing it. And so the other thing, but getting back to Stratton, us kids, well, especially Susie, anybody from Londonderry, either their mother was on a cash register, father loading a lift, father being a carpenter up there or something. So us kids were all together for all day long and all week long in the schoolroom, and we'd be in the back room, the same kids at Stratton together all weekend long. And we skied and skied. And what it really did for me was show me that it was life beyond Bonneville, you know, life beyond. I met people that were stockbrokers with their kids, and I coached and taught, you know, and I said, you know, you don't have to, I guess, be a farmer. You don't have to go in the woods and run a chainsaw. There's other things, you know. And it gave me a life, because I taught skiing and coached skiing, and it gave me my first ride on an airplane. I went to the Junior Nationals in 1966. And first time this little woodchuck from Londonderry ever even saw an airplane on the ground, and got it and went out there. So it gave me an opportunity to see the world. What a big world it was. But that really changed it around here as far as employment, and we got to mingle with people bought homes too, like in '61 and stuff, and we got to meet these people which would become to ski, obviously, and the summer. Prior to that, we pretty much had summer kids. We'd know. They'd open up a house. Londonderry used to be called Londonderry Air. You know about that, Ed?
Kent or
Yeah.
bust.
Huh?
Kent.
Well, it was Kent first, and then it was London. Because all those big barns you see around Hunt's building down there, the Peabody House had one. Pete Cobb Jr., if you know where he lives, got that big barn. Well, they weren't for milking, they were for horses. Because, and Cluffy, everybody remember Lee and Clough? Yeah. Well, Lee and Clough, I talked to him a lot about this. They would come up on the train and get out at the grain store where my grandfather worked, and then stay in one of these hotels, Peabody House, Hunt's House and stuff, and they'd take them for rides up under the mountain in these 12-people carriages with their of course, whatever, umbrellas and stuff. And all those barns held horses, teams of horses to do it. And so Londonderry was famous for its air, supposed to be healthy. That's when Lowell Lake was big. With some people might remember that. I've only read about it. Do you remember Lowell Lake?
Well, my mother used to work at Lowell Lake, so.
Yeah, that was a big entertainment center, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
That was it in the summer. That was the biggest shot around.
So anyway, Stratton brought in a whole new lifestyle for us, and we could do something different than log and milk cows, and
And we were really good skiers too.
well, we had to be.
We skied every
Worked
day.
We could do the Stratton Bromley conversation sometime. My dad was a ski instructor at Bromley, 1948 to 1962. And that's how I ended up being born here and being raised. And we lived at Bromley. I used to sit under the picnic table in the ski school room, and I was about 3 years old.
I remember that room.
I lived under that picnic table at Bromley.
I remember
And my
that.
mom worked sometimes in the cafeteria, and I remember one of my first jobs that I remember was pouring ketchup from one bottle to another bottle at Bromley, and I was pretty sure I was not going to grow up to be doing that.
Ketchup pour.
I was not going to be doing that. But it was great at Bromley. It was like family at Bromley. It was-
Yeah, just like Stratton was.
yeah,
for
now
a while.
my son Lucas went to skied at Bromley and went to Stratton Mountain School and did really well. And now my grandchildren are snowboarding at Bromley, and it's a family place as far as I'm concerned. Not different, very different than Stratton.
Yeah.
Well, we weren't here when Bromley started, but we went to school with his daughter, Paula.
Oh, yeah,
Fred Paps's.
yeah,
Yeah. Bromley was nice back then.
really.
We were there, we went to Bromley first, my father did, just to do the ski patrol. Then we left there, we went to Magic, he did it there. Then we went to Stratton, and he did Carlos Soda's clinic and the ski patrol there. So we hit them all.
It's amazing to see what skiing has done to this town over the years. I mean, we managed to run 3 ski areas at one point.
Still got them.
Still got them. Sometimes they run, sometimes they don't. But It was busy, man. The effects of this, what went on here, rippled out through all of southern Vermont. People gained employment through it, whether it's cutting trees, hauling logs, building condos, building houses, building the base lodge, teaching skiing. It reached an enormous amount of people.
Now they ship all their employees in.
Yeah.
Because there's not enough employees.
Nobody wants to work.
No.
That was never the case before.
No, it wasn't.
You're kind of getting back to entertaining ourselves here. I can remember people as old as me, but no, actually they were younger than me, I now. But the town would have a baseball team. I mean, of old men, not the high school kids and such. I know there's Legion teams around and stuff, but this was like
Town
the
team.
fathers, their town team, you know, they could be 40, 45 years old and still play baseball. And I remember them playing right with, well, I call it Clarkside GA, but Mountain, that whole field was a baseball field. I remember sitting up across the road on that hill, up by where now it's a motorcycle shop or whatever there, watching the baseball field in that field. And then that's when, I gotta tell you, we were playing basketball in the town hall. That was our gym down right in South Dairy, basketball there. And in ran somebody said, Clark's, yeah, Clark's. No, I'm sorry. Adams is on fire, which set right here across the bridge. Set right there. I remember that, and to stop the basketball game, every man and woman and child comes up over this hill 900. And yes, it was on fire and burning. And I remember Gordy Beatty, probably nobody knows him, of course they don't, but he's down there chopping a hole in the ice because it was the middle of winter. Lost 4 axes going through the ice. I was up on the bridge because I was doing a little bit. Old Gordy was right down there chopping. He'd go like that and lose it down through the ice. They'd hand him another one. Lost 4 axes on the fire department down through the ice. And that's when that's when Adams went down and started the shopping center.
It was twin brothers.
Yeah.
I moved away from here for a while and was moved to a bigger town than this. And I was working and the fire alarm goes off. So I dropped my tool belt and started. The guy says, "Where are you going?" So I'm going to the fire, aren't we? He says, "If you went to the fire, you'd never work. If there's a fire every day, every 10 minutes." And we always dropped everything, right?
Oh yeah, I mean,
maybe you could help, maybe you just walk.
Smith's Mill, Uncle Dick and Uncle Dick, well, Smith's Mill, they do that fire alarm go off, they shut the mill right down, and every employee jump in the car and go for it. You know, that was like, you know, now people say, "Oh, fire," what the heck, you know, I give anybody credit, first responders there. We're just so lucky to have people like that for the first aid and the fire departments. We're so lucky.
We did play a lot of baseball in my father's field, right next to the house. Remember that? That was, didn't matter who it was. If they could stand up and swing, they could play. That was fun. That was one of our pastimes. We didn't have a lot.
No, we didn't do a whole lot, but what we did, we had fun at. I can remember sanding the roads in town, because most of them were dirt. And what the sander was a thing on the back of a dump truck with 2 men and shovels. I can still picture them coming up over the Church Hill, because I lived right there. Well, my house is gone now, and the hill is gone now. They took everything. But and I remember Walt Jenkins and them, right on the back with just regular shovels, throwing it right out the back on the roads to sand the roads back then. Yep.
Can you tell us anything about Joe Grover?
Well, Susie would know Joe Grover a lot more than myself.
Yeah, Joe was a postmaster for many years, and his wife was also. His wife was very crabby. She I don't know if she didn't like her job, I don't know, that was her problem, but you always wanted to get Joe when you went to the post office. Joe liked to golf. I used to golf with him at Tater Hill many years, and his wife golfed too. We had some really good times there.
Michael was just talking about him last night for some reason. Wasn't he an insurance salesman too?
Yes.
Nationwide Insurance,
Yes,
right?
he was.
Yes.
It was that rally was
You tell
insurance.
what happened to him in the service.
Yeah, well, he got both legs blown off.
Right, they took 3 inches
Yeah.
out of both of his legs.
Yeah.
And put his, the baseball team at one time was in Rossendale.
Yeah.
And I was to pitch the
Londonderry.
game. and Joe came home and they said, would you give it up? I said, he's a hero. And he was pitching and they played Grafton, and Grafton started bunting on him because Joe couldn't get off the mound, and everybody started booing. They stopped him right off. But that was, the Grovers were.
He was
Joe
a
did
good
a
enough
lot.
baseball player to almost be in the things if that hadn't happened to him, right?
Yeah.
That's what I heard. He would have gone for
Yeah, he would
major, yeah.
He
I
was
still have my
left-handed,
dad's
yeah.
uniform.
Huh?
I still have my dad's
Oh, yeah?
Londonderry baseball uniform, yeah. Pretty cool.
Now, the other question, does anybody go to the school on Thompsonburg Road?
No, that was before our time.
My brothers and sisters went there.
The one that's burnt now.
Yeah, they burned
When
it.
did they close that?
That was just one room, right?
There's just one room.
Do you know when they closed that?
I really don't, because we moved from there down to West Townsend in 1935.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
We lived
before
in-
us.
We lived by the Wilkinses farm there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then we lived up in the Land Grove, but also right up here on the left, the road used to go in and out. Bonlander House, was it? Barden House? They got one end of the road closed off. It's before you get the lumber now. It was either the Bonlander or Barden, something I was there. That's where we lived.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we
Couple of
learned to
days.
entertain ourselves, and must say, I had a horse. Vince, I don't think rode horses. Well, had a horse. I had a horse, and it was in Peru at one of my friends' houses, Carl again, and we'd go riding on our horses. Took my mother one day. I thought she was gonna have a fit on the horse, but she liked it. But you just did, you never planned anything, because we didn't know, first of all, if we didn't have our license, how we were gonna get there. And like Vince said, Memorial Park was then you could stay there and swim. Now you have to leave at a certain time and yada, yada, yada. It's all different now, but we could stay there and have dinner at the picnic table and,
Of course, we all know that insurance is a big deal, but
yeah.
and when we used to in Adams's parking lot, I'm sure there's somebody here that I know Ed did. We'd have a 4th of July, the square dances and stuff, and fireworks come out of the cemetery, and just
With
locals
Walt
put them on.
Jenkins.
Walt
Good old
Jenkins
Walt.
would put them on. I got to tell you a quick story about Walt's father. His name was Walt too. My father was a cabinet maker, and he came down. This is Walt Sr. Came down and said, "It's our 50th wedding anniversary tomorrow, and I want to give my wife a blanket chest. Could you make one for me, Lloyd?" And Lloyd said, "Sure." He says, "How much will it be?" He said, $27. He said, "All right, Lloyd, build it for me." So Dad built it, and he comes down to pick it up, and he goes, "Lloyd, I ain't got any money." Dad said, "Well, take it like this." He said, "I'll tell you what I do," Walt said. So I'll give you $1 now, and I'll give you $1 a year till it's paid off. And by God, my father laughs hard, and he kept track of the date, and he died before he paid it off. But every year on that certain date, it wasn't like during the week when he saw, "Oh Lord, I owe you this $1." It was right on that 27th of July or whatever. Walt Sr. would come in and give my father another $1. And Walt was just as crazy, if we all knew Walt.
Especially when he let off the fireworks.
Yeah.
Walt would be on fire sometimes.
There was no telling
And
his
we would
condition
really
when he was
worry.
done, but boy, he put on a good firework.
He did. But it was scary.
We thought we'd see him shoot up in the
Well,
sky.
we've seen it a couple times. He couldn't even see the fireworks most of the time.
We could get into the characters in town. I'll run through a couple of mine. Right down on where Stagger Inn is, just before you come into Londonderry, that garage got hit by a car right there, coming in South Derry. That house that used to be called Stagger
Red
Inn.
blinker.
Right,
Yeah, it was the red blinker too.
right there, a guy named Finney Hoy lived in a caboose that used to come up from Brattleboro from the railroad. He dragged it up there and set it on that corner. And old Finney Hoy he liked his booze pretty well, and he was an older man. He used to go down to Walt's barber shop and sat into Walt's barbershop, and Walt had 2 chairs, and he'd sit there. And when Walt got done cutting somebody's hair, and go back behind his counter to ring him up, old Finney'd run right over and grab the Aquavelva and put the Aquavelva right to it. Old Walt would say, Vinny, you shouldn't do that. And old Vinny would be rolling it right into it.
Didn't it make him sick?
It was a
He
simpler
was
time.
stupid.
He was sick of it.
Then there was Del Boynton. He was from the family of the Peabody House. And he lived in one room in the Peabody House.
In South Londonderry.
In South, this is all South area, because I didn't know any crazies up here, but and he had a dog that used to bite us all going by coming home from school, Dalmatian dog, and Dutch Pearson, which is lived down towards Derby's junkyard. Derby was another character in town. He had a junkyard, and once a week go to Rutland with junk from his cars and stuff. And
You never wanted to get stuck behind it.
no, because he went 2
You
miles
never
an
wanted
hour.
to get caught in the junkyard either.
No.
Remember when we'd sneak down there? He'd chase us.
Oh yeah.
I
You
was
drive 2 miles
spooky.
an hour and you saw a can, you'd stop and pick it
And he
up.
picked up all the cans and bottles,
Oh yeah.
right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, that was him.
Yeah.
In his later years.
I mean, he was picking them up all the time.
Oh yeah. Green Up Day was every day for him.
When we lived on our house on Melanie Hill, across from us were Mr. and Mrs. Derby, and they were, oh gosh, they lived way up until their 90s. And they had a very interesting relationship. And one of the things that they used to do is they never did anything together. Like on their 50th anniversary, their kids gave them money to put an indoor bathroom in. And he wanted to do it, she wanted to do it, and he didn't want to do it, so she never let him use that bathroom. I don't think he ever took a bath. They had 2 refrigerators, and in the morning, if they perked their coffee together, they would each take a scoop out of like their own cans of coffee and put it in. But they were so funny. And when Michael and I were first living there, before we had our kids, Michael will go down and help Harry cut firewood, and he cut like slabs. He'd get loads of slabs. He'd cut it every day. And one day he said to Michael, let's go in and have a glass of Smiles. And Michael thought, I don't know what Smiles are, but Michael was up for trying it. So he went in, and it was gin, ginger ale, and maple syrup. And that was the cocktail of the day at Mr. Derby's house.
Did Michael smile when he got home?
It didn't take very much to get him smiling, but yeah, they were good neighbors. So they thought that they thought Minnie Hewlett would have rolled over in her grave because we put some kind of lights up in the front of the house. We took out a bunch of walls, and of course Michael, being an architect, had to go do all that stuff. And then he hung these glass lampshades, and they come up and go, oh, I don't think Minnie's gonna like this. And they had comments for us all the time, but they were good neighbors. We had our garden on their property for years.
Yeah.
Do you remember the dump when there was a sign that said Pags In? Do you know anything about that?
What in?
Pags In. There was a sign at the dump, and people's names were on it, like they stayed at that inn, at the dump.
Oh. Is that?
Paganini or some,
Pags.
used to sleep there?
Yeah.
Oh, that was Pag.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't know.
He was a guy who was on the ski patrol at Stratton for years with us. If it's the same guy we're thinking.
And he
don't know.
slept there and called it an inn, right?
Well, he could have. There was times he could have easily slept there.
I
Yeah.
saw an old poster of Adams Clark area before the groceries and everything that had a gypsy camp.
Oh, yeah.
What was the gypsy camp
Remember?
in Londonderry?
Was it right where the old store was or the new store?
New store on the property. Probably where you play baseball.
Probably.
A store?
Yeah, it was.
No, it was a gypsy camp.
Oh,
Oh, gypsy.
1900.
Well, we could have had a few of those.
that could have come through Londonderry. Everything else did. But
I can remember my grandmother sending me out to look on the side of the road for piled up rocks and to kick them over. because the hobos were leaving signs, you could get something to eat here or there. Stay away from this place is okay.
Manchester and Londonderry weren't that different.
They
As far
were,
as-
they were just
they
a few
were-
miles apart,
yeah,
was the
they-
only difference.
So far, just a mountain in between us, but we had 3 sections of the town, the depot, the center, and the village. And there were the village kids and the depot kids and the center kids. And there were, where the shopping center is, where Price Chopper, that's where we went sliding.
Yeah,
That was nothing, there
Center
was
Hill.
nothing, Center Hill. And anywhere that there was ice, any little puddle that froze, everybody went ice skating there. You'd end up all there, and it wouldn't be very big, it'd be half the size of this room, and there'd be like as many kids as you could possibly get on a piece of frozen ice just to do it. There wasn't anything going, there were band concerts, which was,
yes.
they were good too.
Depends which side of the fence you was sitting on.
Did you play?
Yeah.
Oh, I was an observer. And what else do we?
Middle of summer, who wanted to give up a night to go play your trumpet?
Oh, it was fun.
Your trumpet.
The drive-in movie.
We did have a drive-in movie. We had a pool for a
Yeah.
while, the Rotary Club pool, which was really fun.
Where
So
was that?
it's near
Oh,
Mount.
Manchester.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A great,
We didn't have it in Londonderry.
a great recycling of that drive-in theater was Vern Jenks over in Bonneville bought the big girders that held it up, and he used it to support his roof. So
Sugar house.
it was a real nice piece of recycling.
Yeah, we went to that a lot, that drive-in.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of skating, how many people remember the dam in Southderry? Must be a few that remember the dam there. Marvin Howard built that. Marvin Howard was quite a guy in town. You notice the fire department building is dedicated to him. He lived in the brick building where the Pearsons, the Charlie Pearson and what was her name? June. They lived there, and he was the undertaker in town. And the casket building is the one right at the end of Forbes now. They call it my grain store, but there's a little building there. The Forbes don't own that. That's privately owned, right at the end
That
of.
is, I didn't know.
Yeah, somebody owns that. And anyway, that was the casket building. They kept the caskets there, and then old Marvin Howard would take care of the bodies on the other side of the back of that big brick building, which is right there on the corner in Southderry. Marvin built that dam, and I helped him one time. We went out when the water was just barely going over it. He had a slide thing made of wood. We opened it up and drained that whole pond. And Everett West, we used to skate on that pond, obviously. And I remember years you could skate right from the dam all the way up through and all the way to the tennis court building.
Yeah.
That was all water, and you could skate that whole distance, almost to North Derry. Skate that. Yeah. Them big long legs had skates like that. But the funny part, now we'd be arrested again for what we did. We went up to the Phillies' house up by Smith's Mill. Now it's a cottage shop. Right there, and they never threw a tire away, never. They have them piled behind their house, and we'd pick up 30, 40, 50 tires and go down there, roll them down onto the ice, pile them up so they're as big as like this room, and torch them to skate by. Of course, all us kids would come home smelling just like a rubber tire, of course. But I mean, of course, lighting a tire on fire now is highly illegal. And there we are, right out in the middle of it, burning tires to meet the band, staying warm like this, and skating. And they'd finally go through the ice if it weren't thick enough, and of course that'd be in the water and whatever. But that's an interesting thing. When we took up Marvin Howard and I, he had a winch, and he pulled up this door that slid shut to stop the water, and it went out. All the houses, and it went as far as the parsonage, and almost to my grandfather's house, which burnt. The one above the parsonage on Middletown Road right here on the other side. Those houses all got their water from the other side of the river. That was all springs over there, and that was good water. On the other side of the river was full of lead. It was lead. And when we drained that pond, there was lead pipe. I bet you there was 30 lead pipes going across that river up onto the hill where Fergus Smith, a bungalow we called it. That was another Marvin Howard place. The bungalow was another little building up there that Fergus lived in and bought. But Marvin Howard planted apple trees up there in the fields. There was fields. And he thought he was planting nice Macintosh apples and stuff and put them all in and they grew up. But they finally produced fruit, and I don't know the name of the apple. But it was a big old hardcore, you could make just pies out of, about this size. Everything he planted was the wrong tree. But we had apple fights up there. Everybody had done the apple fight with a stick, you know.
Yeah.
you know, with his apples. But anyway, that was interesting. Then I missed that pond, and we should have had it back, but state wouldn't allow it. It made South Derry look so much better, so nicer. But we'd take away Pete Cobb's camping ground now if we took it away.
He's in the middle of the island.
Yeah, right.
I love that.
Couple really historic buildings gone, Peabody House,
Yep.
Woody's.
Yep.
Cracker Barrel. Yeah, around the main street. That was a cool ski shop.
Yeah, that kind of hung out over the river.
We'd go over there and hang out too.
That's another thing. South Derry, they had Adams up here. South Derry had 3 markets in the town at one time. So you had the red and white that Elmer Argas ran, where the post office is now. Not even had a soda fountain in it.
Soda fountain, yeah.
In that one. Then you came up and right where Woody's Cracker Barrel was on the corner before he built in Rossville, that was Bragg's store. And it was a guy, he might have had a loaf of bread and a can of soup in there, but what he did have was a wheel of cheese that when he took the plastic, with the weight and the plastic goes up, when he took that off, the whole town could smell it. It was the strongest cheese, and my father just loved it. And he'd come home every night, you know, when they cut it and wrap it in the paper, you know, that was that store. And then, of course, across the store was Alexander's. And that's the store where the train station is now or whatever. And that was a full blown-out store. I mean, it became a liquor store too.
Liquor store, yeah.
But it wasn't for till they made state liquor stores. That's he got it. But for the longest time, that was just so you could shop in 3 different stores in South Derry.
That was a big deal.
But of course, North Derry, and you can tell me probably better because I can't remember. They had Adams, but Richardson's was the name of that.
Which was
Then
Mike
right
and
out
Tammy's.
where Broken Leg was another small little store up here.
Revival, where Revival is now.
Revival is now that there was Warner.
Yeah.
Warner's had a little store there, so there were stores. But these, the 2, especially in South Derry, were actually grocery stores. I mean, aisles and carts and stuff, and 2 in the same town in Londonderry.
Wasn't that on the end of Thompson Road, and there was a little racetrack there at one point?
Go-karts.
Go-karts.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that was huge. I was just like, that was I
We used to play baseball there too.
He was a night watchman at Smith's Mill, Puget something. He was a little Italian guy.
Sharon Crosby says, that's all, every Friday night, that's where everybody was.
Yeah, that was a good,
Nothing
that was
else.
good entertainment.
Yeah.
And everybody in town raced that. Wayne Peck had his hot one, but the Kenny Merrill had
Probably
one.
Joe.
Huh?
I don't know, did Joe have one? Joe Grover?
I don't know if Joe had one, but
And you could hear it all the way up to
well, that's what put a stop to him because somebody under the mountain, some summer person, didn't like the noise.
Damn under the mountain people.
Yeah, that's where they. Yeah. Anyway, it was shut down finally.
Before Ron Prouty bought the sister building, it had sat, it was owned by Joyce Hyde at that point, and it just sat empty forever and ever. And I was looking around in there one day when I probably shouldn't have been, and there were copies of the Sifter, the Londonderry Sifter. And I found one pile had a morning edition and an afternoon edition. It came out twice a day.
Where did they do that, Jim?
Right in the Sifter building.
Where is
that?
this?
Where's Tadmo Pile? We're at the foot of Old School Street. Behind the library.
It was a
Yeah, yeah.
It hangs out over the road.
Oh, that was the library when I was a kid, but that. We did have a lot of characters in town, I tell you. Everett Vale was a printer. He had the old printing presses, the big wheels. I used to work for him. You spin the wheel, keep the thing and then you go down, up, take the paper up, put the next one in, boom, 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 boom. And I used to print for him. And he lived in the house, 2 houses down. As you come down from the town offices now and go left, there's a house that's got an American flag on it. The very next one was Everett Vale's place. And he had printers, and the printers were in your barn
Yeah.
for a while.
Weston Country Store came and took the press.
Check the press.
Vince,
Yeah.
what was the story about the freight wagon in Londonderry, right on the water?
Right here?
Yes.
Yeah, right, right across the street.
What was
Freight
that
wagon,
building?
remember?
It was the post office.
What was that?
The store?
Yeah.
That was my grandmother's.
Wow.
She collected antiques And her and Abby Williams, who owned the house that the Gubbs live in now, were best friends. And my grandma called it the bucket shop. But they
It's an
sold,
old building though, right? A
yeah,
really
they
old-
sold antiques in there for years. I think Grandma got pretty rich on it, actually. She never really told me, but they had a good time. And then it changed into something else. And I don't know. Yeah, but that was a sad story.
It was Londonderry's post office.
Yes, that place caught on fire, and my husband and I lived right across the street. My bedroom was right on the road. And I don't know why, I woke up and I looked out the window and there's that whole house on fire. And they had kids, and him and the wife were in there. And my husband ran out the door, I don't even know if he was dressed, ran over there and grabbed all of them and brought them out, and the house burnt flat. Remember? It was awful. I don't know why it started, I don't remember, but do you remember that?
No, I don't. I don't.
Judy Duchard sold antiques out of there for.
Who did?
What, Judy Duchard?
She might have been after my
Yeah, she was the freight wagon lady.
Yeah, okay, that was after Grandma. Grandma was the bucket shop. Guess she had a lot of buckets. And then the freight wagon was another lady. She sold antiques, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great old building.
Fabulous.
It was so cool in there. You were right on top of the water. Well, there also used to be a house right next
Right
to it
beside it, yeah.
that I lived in with my parents.
Did that burn when the freight wagon went up?
No, you
No, they moved that house.
they
Loaded that. The house that was beside it sits right on top of the hill here now.
Right.
On
Oh, it
on the
does?
left-hand side,
yeah, I guess they did move that, yeah. It was a nice house.
yeah.
But you would have a lot of rats in your house with you, so you had to get used to that. You could be sitting there and a rat would,
We were rats.
they'd come up from the water. They were awful. God, they were awful. And then we had times when everybody was fooling around, they decided they were gonna dive in the water, you know, that dirty water, and they'd swim across the pond.
Yeah, we never swam in
I saw things swimming in it.
You
Wasn't
did?
people.
Did you swim in it, Jim?
No, I said what I saw wasn't people.
You mean from the septic systems that weren't there?
Downhill's downhill, I guess.
I got some Vermont humor about locals. My Uncle Dick and Norm Hunt, which Norm Hunt and Mick West had a garage where Janeway's apartments are. That's right beside the post office in South Londonderry. That was a garage. And the IGA was right there. And their main objective was to go as soon as it opened and get a six-pack of beer and go back. And Mick and Norm were quite the units. Well, Norm came up to Smith's Mill one day and saw my Uncle Dick and said, I need to borrow a tap and die thing to make something down to the shop. Dick said, it's right in there, take it. So he did and took it down to the thing. A couple months later, Dick was looking for it and he couldn't find it. He went down and said, Norm, you going to bring that tap and die thing back to me? And he said, Norm said, I did my part, I come and got it.
Did he ever take it back?
No, Dick picked it up because he was down there. But, Norm was quite the unit. His wife was a church-going organist playing little lady, just nicest to us kids and stuff. And he was a grouchy old thing. He used to always have a bag of them Cheez-Its, he called them hen turds. He'd say, hey, Dick, you want a hen turd? Like walking home from school. He had a pet raccoon in the garage. And he'd take and give you an apple and say, hide that apple in your pocket. And he wouldn't. Then he'd tell his pet raccoon to come and go all over you and then finally find that apple and sit in your lap and eat the apple. Old Norm got a real kick out of that. Then, yeah, Mick and him were quite the units running that garage. You remember the garage? Yeah. Yeah.
One of the Hunt was my school teacher.
Exactly.
Not
Norm?
Victoria.
Oh, a lady?
Yeah.
Was that Norm's wife?
No, Norm's wife was Hazel. But you're talking about a relative down Townsend way.
West Townsend, yeah.
Because, I mean, he had, the hunts were like from Brattleboro and stuff, some of his relatives.
I wish I could think for a first name. You get old, you forget all this.
Of course you do.
Do you remember Marvin Howard's peacocks?
Oh, yeah, I heard him
We
every
used to
morning.
go out there and try to torment them.
Yeah.
Oh, he had the most beautiful, right behind where the market is in South Londonderry. Marvin had, I guess they were cages. And he had the
We got a whole barn full of
beautiful-
exotic birds.
barn of these peacocks, the most beautiful birds you'd ever see. And he'd let them out sometimes. Of course, we were all amazed. We'd never seen a peacock, in South Londonderry. But that was really cool. He loved those birds.
I can still hear old Marvin Howard looking at me and saying, when I grow strawberries, I plan on eating them.
Why did you steal
Because
them?
I ate every one he had. He was so bad, I'm telling you.
Yeah,
They were up by his peacocks, yeah.
yeah, probably the peacocks got some too, I bet.
Probably, I don't know, but yeah.
I think South Derry here probably had one of the first sewer systems. If you recall, if you come across the bridge in South Derry and take a left, there used to be a house, a big house right there on the left. I don't know if you can remember. Anybody remember the house? Well, the toilet was right over the river.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
So everything went right into the river.
Was that Parker's?
They used to say that if you fish down below, you got the best brown trout you ever.
Oh, we used to see that a lot in Londonderry.
That was the same at John Wiley's shop.
Yeah. Our Boy Scout.
In the back that,
Yeah.
The
Our
whole
Boy
went
Scout
like
hall,
this.
that went right over the river,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It was common, it was very common.
So you did?
Yes.
You'd be in trouble now.
You laugh till you have to use one,
Yeah.
when it's winter time. I finally figured out why, you know why there's two seats in there? You got a can of lime hanging up there, and toilet paper, obviously, so when you go, before you go, you put the lime to it. But that still doesn't cut it down fast enough to build right up, so your rear end's touching it. So guess what you do? You move over to the clean one till the lime eats this one down. But that's the truth. That's the truth. People think, oh, so you can go together. Well, that's not it. An active family of four will fill. I mean, you didn't have backhoes to go down in 40 feet, so it was just.
We lived with an
But that
outhouse.
lime will eat that within 2 or 3 weeks, and
When we bought Minnie Hewitt's house in
Yes.
South Londonderry, there was a two-holer. And we did some renovations over the years, and we had the seat from it just propped up in the back. And my aunt came to visit one time, and she wanted that seat. I was like, I thought that was the most disgusting thing. They took it off to New York somewhere, and it lived happily ever after, but
I'll tell you something about that. The house that we lived in Jamaica had a three-holer,
oh my gosh.
and we had 3 kids. So what we did, we cleaned that up and we put the pictures in it.
that's a good one.
Yeah, it didn't stay up very long though.
I remember
Our house we lived with.
I know.
my aunts were going to get my grandparents a bathroom. And my grandfather, he went nuts. You're not doing that in my house.
Is that right?
You go outside, you want to do that.
I can actually remember in that same red house down there that I talked about getting the car hit it right on that sharp corner going in South Derry. Downstairs there was a leather man there that would fix shoes and stuff. He also, and what he made a lot of money on, because they were still logging with horses, is fixing tack. I don't remember the name. He went downstairs and it was right under there, because Clyde Prouty lived there with his kids and his wife for the longest time right there.
Across from the store?
No, stagger in.
Oh, okay.
Right there. And you take a pair of shoes and you take them down to the, you put new soles on them. That's what you just didn't throw them away. You had them, rebuilt.
Well, we lived in that White House that the airplane flew into, right there across from the store.
Yeah.
And I had a brand new bicycle. I loved that bicycle. Well, I got up one day and went outside to look for my bicycle. It was gone. Well, we had this guy in town by the name of Arthur. What was his last name?
Shotty.
Shardia. Okay. Well, he saw that bike out on my lawn, and he decided that he wanted it. Well, I was crushed. I was crying to my mother and my father, and so the three of us walked downtown. There's Arthur riding around on my bike. And we said, Arthur, that's not your bike. He had a disability, needless to say. But he said, yeah, I know it's not my bike. I said, it's my bike. Get off it. So I got my bike back. But we lived in that apartment building. Ooh. That was a little scary there, but we didn't stay there too long. Then the airplane went into it.
Yeah,
Melody?
when the jets hit out here, one wing
Melody's
comes
house?
down.
Yeah.
The one right at the bottom.
It's
they
all
tore
gone
down.
now,
It's all
just
gone.
boards are piled up there and stuff. Carlton's.
Had two apartments in it.
Oh.
It was Parker's. It was Parker House.
No, Alice Parker lived up the road. That was
Are you
Carlton's.
sure?
I'm
Carlton's?
sure. I've been to Mrs. Parker many times.
Oh, okay.
Rang her doorbell and run like a son. That Arthur Schotter, thinking of old time things, she was a little Italian lady with knees that went out about 4 foot each way, and he was had cut off 3 fingers up to Smith's Mill, so we called him Bow-Legged B and 3-Fingered Lee. That was their nicknames in town. And Jack Tift, which is Tommy Tift's father, he was a fisherman, and a good fisherman, and took it very serious. And Arthur and 3-Fingered Lee, well, they get on the bridge there in South Derry. And one would be on one end, one would be on the other. And Jack would be catching these trout under the dam like this, you know, and stuff. And old Jack, and then 3-Fingered Lee couldn't even catch a sucker on the other side. And us kids being mean, we'd run over to 3-Fingered Lee and say, boy, you ought to see the fish Jack's getting over there. So you get out of here, you little kids. You know, oh, we torment poor old 3-Fingered Lee terrible. And Jack was a... Jack, I can remember, it is a sad thing, but Jack died on the church roof, reslating it. I think he was working for Rip Swan, and I can remember as a kid, because I saw all weddings, all funerals, I saw everything right from my front lawn, and I can still remember they lowered him off the roof with a rope, had it right around his thing, and he'd come down and put him in the station wagon, and away they went. He died right on the church roof.
That's awesome. God was with him.
Like, we could do this for hours, I think, you know, but it's
Time to go?
wrap
You
it
want
up.
to go home?
No,
Anybody got any questions at all?
Yeah, you can stay.
Yeah, well,
There are
just about
kids
anything
there,
about
too.
Londonderry.
Yeah,
We covered a few things. And I wanted to see Ed Brown's here. Him and his brother pulled into town and changed the strip down here for us all. We all had a great time at the mill. I had great memories of the mill. Good food, good drinking, and good music, and yes, it was a fun time.
And are your paintings still in there?
Yes.
Are they really? So it's just like it was?
Oh, yeah. Fond memories.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Leon Clough.
You should get tours on weekends.
Oh, yeah.
I got married there.
Yeah.
I had my
You
first
got
date
back?
there. First date. Yes, I did marry him.
So I'll take matchmaker in first date. Something in the water,
He could
probably.
tell some stories about the house that we lived in. And Wyndham. He could tell some stories about the farm up there
And Wyndham.
in Carthage.
Oh, I'm sure Ed's got stories to tell.
Yeah.
I enjoyed listening to yours.
Well, we had fun. At least I did. Yeah. I know it's getting late, but.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. I hope we didn't bore you.